Lake Serenity lived up to its name the first time I laid eyes on it. The water stretched out like liquid sapphire, reflecting the surrounding pine trees and mountains in its perfect mirror surface. After 15 years of 60-hour work weeks as a software engineer in Seattle, this was to be my sanctuary, my reward, my escape from the digital world. The cabin itself was everything I had dreamed about: cedar beams, stone fireplace, walls of windows facing the water, and a wraparound deck where I could drink my morning coffee in perfect solitude. I remember signing the closing papers with hands that could not quite stay steady. The real estate agent smiled as she handed me the keys. "Congratulations, Alex. Welcome to Blue Water Cove. $320,000. Every bonus, every overtime shift, every careful investment for over a decade had gone into this purchase." But standing on that deck the first evening, watching the sunset paint the water gold and crimson, I knew it had been worth every penny and every sacrifice. What the listing had conveniently glossed over was the Homeowners Association. Blue Water Cove HOA had rules. Many rules. Excessive rules. The orientation packet landed on my doorstep the day after closing. 48 pages of regulations governing everything from the acceptable color of window treatments to the maximum height of bird feeders. And at the end of the document was the signature of the president, Karen Davis, with her contact information listed in bold. I met Karen in person 3 weeks after moving in. She appeared at my door, clipboard in hand, pastel blazer perfectly pressed despite the summer heat. "Your wind chimes are not regulation bronze," she informed me without introduction. "Article 7, Section 4 clearly states all exterior decorative elements must match the approved color scheme." She gestured toward my decorative wind chimes hanging from the corner of the deck. "Those are silver. You have 14 days to replace them." That was just the beginning. Over the next 6 months, I received citations for having the wrong type of welcome mat, for leaving my kayak visible on the side of the house, and for installing solar path lights that were 2 lumens brighter than regulation. I tried to explain that I only visited the property 1 weekend a month. The rest of the time, I was back in Seattle working. Who exactly was being bothered by these minor infractions? "Rules are rules," Karen would say, her practiced smile never reaching her eyes. "We maintain property values through consistent standards." Then things started getting strange. During my March visit, I noticed a wine glass on the deck that was not mine. In April, the furniture in the living room had been subtly rearranged. The couch was 2 inches farther from the wall than I had left it. The coffee table books were in a different order. Small things, things I might not have noticed if I did not have a nearly photographic memory for spatial details, a professional hazard of coding complex systems. "Beautiful sunset tonight," my neighbor Tom commented as we both checked our mailboxes one evening in late spring. "Almost as nice as the one last weekend." I paused. "Last weekend? I was not here last weekend." Tom looked confused. "Oh, I just assumed those folks were your guests. Nice couple, said they were from Portland." My blood ran cold. No one should have been in my house. No one had permission to be there. I thanked Tom and went inside, my mind racing. That night I went through the house inch by inch. The guest room sheets had been changed. The dishwasher held clean glasses I had not used. 3 towels were missing from the linen closet. Someone had definitely been in my house, and not just passing through. Someone had been living in it. As I sat on my deck that night, the previously peaceful lake now seemed ominous, hiding secrets beneath its glassy surface. Something was seriously wrong in paradise, and I was determined to find out what. The camera installation took less than 2 hours. Small, wireless, motion-activated units in the main living areas, front entrance, and master bedroom. Not in bathrooms. I still had ethical boundaries. even when investigating potential crimes. The system uploaded footage directly to cloud storage that I could access from my phone or laptop. Before leaving that Sunday evening, I did one final check. The cameras were invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. With a strange mixture of dread and determination, I locked up and headed back to Seattle. 5 days passed. 5 days of checking the app compulsively, seeing nothing but empty rooms and still furniture. Perhaps I had been overreacting. Perhaps the evidence had innocent explanations. Then Friday afternoon, my phone chimed with a notification. Motion detected at front entrance. The notification came while I was in a project meeting. I excused myself to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and opened the app with shaking hands. The footage loaded slowly, the buffering circle testing my already limited patience. Finally, the image appeared clear enough to make out details. My heart nearly stopped. Karen Davis stood at my front door, keys in hand. My keys. Keys I had never given her. She glanced around furtively before unlocking the door and stepping inside. The interior camera activated moments later, showing Karen walking through my living room with a proprietary air, adjusting a cushion here, straightening a picture frame there. She moved with the confidence of someone who had done this many times before. 30 minutes later, Karen returned to the front door and opened it wide. A middle-aged couple stood on my porch, suitcases in hand. "Welcome to Blue Water Haven," Karen said with practiced warmth. "Let me show you around your weekend getaway." I watched in horror as she gave them a complete tour of my house, pointing out features as if she owned the place. "The kitchen was recently upgraded with quartz countertops," she told them. "And the master bedroom has that spectacular lake view I promised." The couple looked delighted, thanking Karen for such a beautiful property. Back in the office bathroom stall, I pressed my forehead against the cool metal partition, trying to process what I was seeing. This was beyond a violation of HOA authority. This was criminal trespassing, fraud, theft. Karen Davis was renting out my property without my knowledge or consent. That night I could not sleep. The footage continued to stream to my phone, strangers eating dinner at my table, drinking wine on my deck, sleeping in my bed. They were not destructive or disrespectful. They were simply guests who believed they had legitimately rented a vacation home. They had no idea they were part of an elaborate scam. Saturday morning, I began a systematic investigation. First stop, vacation rental websites. It took less than 10 minutes to find my property listed on 3 different platforms. Blue Water Haven, Luxury Lake Retreat. The photos were professional quality, showing my home in perfect golden hour lighting. The description praised the recently renovated kitchen, premium linens, and private dock access. None of these listings had been created by me. The reviews were even more revealing. Karen was a wonderful host, so attentive and knowledgeable about the area. The welcome basket was such a nice touch. Karen went above and beyond by making dinner reservations for us at the local bistro. 26 reviews across 3 platforms, dating back 4 months, exactly when I had first noticed signs of intrusion. With a growing sense of violation, I created a spreadsheet to calculate the financial damage. Average nightly rate, $250, higher for holidays and summer weekends. Based on the booking calendar, which showed my house rented almost every weekend for 4 months, Karen had collected approximately $12,000 in rental income from my property. The final piece fell into place when I found Karen's personal social media page. There, hidden among vacation photos and community event announcements, was a post from 6 months ago. "Excited to announce my new side business in vacation property management. Contact me for exceptional lakeside accommodations." The thumbnail photo was a sunset shot from my deck. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. The audacity was breathtaking. The HOA president, the same woman who had harassed me about wind chimes and pathway lights, had stolen access to my home and turned it into her personal income stream. Waves of emotion crashed through me. Violation, anger, disbelief, and finally, determination. This would not continue one day longer than necessary to gather enough evidence to destroy her completely. "Let me get this straight," Mason said, putting down his coffee mug. "The HOA president has been breaking into your lake house and renting it out to strangers on vacation rental sites." Mason had been my friend since law school, though unlike me, he had actually become a lawyer rather than veering off into software engineering. His small practice specialized in property law and consumer protection. We sat in his office on Monday morning, the Seattle rain tapping against the windows. "Breaking in implies force," I said. "Somehow she has keys. But yes, she has been entering my property without permission and renting it to vacationers for $250 a night, sometimes more on holidays." Mason removed his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose. "This is criminal trespassing, fraud, likely theft, and possibly more depending on your state's laws. But we need to be methodical about this. What evidence do you have so far?" I pulled out my laptop and opened the folder I had created. Security footage showing multiple unauthorized entries over several weekends. Screenshots of rental listings on 3 different platforms using photos of my property. Booking calendar. Ours showing reservation dates and income. Social media posts where she promotes her vacation property management business, using my house as the backdrop. Reviews from renters specifically mentioning Karen by name. Mason whistled softly. "That is comprehensive. Have you confronted her yet?" I shook my head. "I wanted legal advice first. Plus, I think there is more to uncover." "Smart move," Mason agreed. "We need to document everything meticulously. Timestamps, income estimates, any property damage or missing items. And I would recommend reporting this to the police to establish an official record." Over the next 2 weeks, I built my case like constructing a complex algorithm. Each piece of evidence connected to others, forming a complete picture of Karen's elaborate scheme. I created a timeline of every unauthorized entry, a financial analysis of her illegal income, and a document detailing every interaction I had ever had with her in her capacity as HOA president. During this process, I quietly reached out to a few neighbors whose names had appeared favorably in my interactions with Karen. Tom, the neighbor who had mentioned seeing guests at my property, was shocked when I explained the situation. "That explains a lot," he said when we spoke on the phone. "Karen cited me last year for having non-approved landscape rocks. When I questioned it at the HOA meeting, my quarterly dues suddenly included a special assessment for road maintenance on my section of the street only." This conversation led to another with retired schoolteacher Mrs. Winters, who lived 3 doors down from my property. "Oh dear," she said when I carefully broached the subject of Karen's HOA leadership. "I should have said something sooner. Karen has keys to several properties around the lake. She told us it was for emergency access, a requirement in the HOA bylaws, but I checked the bylaws afterward and found no such requirement." "Did you ever notice activity at my house when I was not there?" I asked. Mrs. Winters hesitated. "I did wonder about that. Different cars in the driveway almost every weekend. But Karen told everyone you had relatives visiting regularly. She said you had authorized her to check on them and make sure they followed HOA regulations." The pattern emerged like a dark web of manipulation centered around Karen's exploitation of HOA authority. Each conversation revealed new abuses. Tom told me about excessive fines for minor violations. Another neighbor, Jim, described how Karen had blocked his application to build a dock until he agreed to hire her brother's construction company at twice the standard rate. Sarah from the north side of the lake mentioned that her complaint about a leaking community sprinkler had been ignored until she purchased decorative planters from Karen's sister's garden shop. My dining room transformed into an evidence boardroom, timelines pinned to walls, rental listings printed and highlighted, camera footage organized chronologically. I took vacation days from work to focus on the investigation, driven by growing outrage not just at the violation of my property, but at the systematic abuse of an entire community. The crucial discovery came during a careful review of HOA meeting minutes from the past year. During a January meeting, Karen had proposed and passed a new inspection policy, giving the HOA president authority to conduct property condition assessments with 24-hour notice. Most homeowners were seasonal and had not attended the winter meeting to object. The policy included a provision that property owners would provide a key to be kept in the HOA office for these inspections. I had never provided such a key, but in March, Karen had sent a notice that my deck needed inspection for structural integrity concerns. I had authorized the inspection via email but had been in Seattle when it occurred. That was when she had obtained access, making a copy of my keys during the legitimate inspection, then using them for her illegal rental business. By the end of the third week, Mason and I had assembled a comprehensive legal case. "We could go to the police now," he said, reviewing our evidence folders. "There is more than enough to file charges." I shook my head. "Not yet. I do not want just legal consequences. I want her caught in the act. I want to see her face when she realizes her scheme has collapsed, and I want to make absolutely certain she can never do this to anyone else." Mason smiled grimly. "Then we need to set a trap, something so public and irrefutable that she cannot possibly talk her way out of it." I nodded, pulling up the stolen rental calendar on my screen, "and I know exactly when to spring it." Memorial Day weekend at Lake Serenity was the unofficial start of summer. Vacation properties filled with visitors, the marina opened its seasonal restaurant, and the lake itself transformed from the quiet retreat I preferred to a bustling recreation area. AC. According to the stolen rental calendar I now monitored daily, Karen had booked my house for the entire 3-day weekend at an eye-watering $750 per night. The booking notes indicated VIP clients, possible recurring business. "Perfect timing," Mason said when I called him with the plan. "Holiday weekend, higher stakes, multiple days of rental income. Plus, the courts take fraud over holiday rates particularly seriously." Our strategy took shape over detailed planning sessions. Mason would prepare the legal documentation, cease and desist orders, evidence packets for the police, and civil suit paperwork. I would handle the technical aspects, additional cameras, recorded evidence, and the confrontation logistics. We brought in 2 trusted neighbors as witnesses, Jim and Sarah, both victims of Karen's previous schemes and both eager to see justice served. "I want to be there when it happens," Sarah said, her normally gentle voice hardening. "She threatened to put a lien on my house last year when I questioned HOA expenditures." 2 days before Memorial Day, I drove back to Lake Serenity, arriving well after dark to avoid community notice. The house felt different now, violated, no longer purely my sanctuary. I walked through each room, noting small changes. A decorative vase I had never purchased sat on the dining table. The guest room had different curtains. A welcome binder labeled Blue Water Haven Guest Information sat on the coffee table. filled with local restaurant menus, activity guides, and house rules written by someone pretending to be me. I installed additional cameras, focusing on areas where confrontation would likely occur: the front entrance, the great room with its lake view, and the upstairs hallway. These cameras would not just record video but audio as well, capturing any incriminating statements Karen might make. Mason had confirmed that Washington was a two-party consent state for recordings, but my property had clearly posted security system notices that satisfied the legal disclosure requirements. The night before Karen's expected arrival with her VIP guests, I met with Jim, Sarah, and Mason at a coffee shop in the next town over, away from prying eyes. "Remember, we need her to incriminate herself clearly," Mason emphasized. "Let her go through her entire welcome spiel. Let her explicitly claim ownership or rental rights. And most importantly, let her accept payment if possible." Sarah looked at the printout of Karen's rental listing. "Look at this. She promises a welcome basket with local wine and artisanal cheeses for an extra $40. The audacity. The more services she claims to provide, the clearer the fraud," Mason noted. "This is about building an airtight case." On the morning of the expected check-in, I positioned myself in my home office, door slightly ajar with a view of the great room. Jim and Sarah stationed themselves in a car down the street, ready to arrive when signaled. Mason waited at his hotel 5 minutes away. The trap was set. At precisely 2 o'clock, the security app on my phone chimed with an alert. Karen's luxury SUV pulled into my driveway. Through the front camera, I watched her checking her appearance in the rearview mirror, smoothing her blonde bob and applying fresh lipstick. She stepped out wearing a cream-colored blazer and navy slacks, looking every bit the successful property manager. From the trunk, she removed a wicker basket covered in cellophane, the promised welcome gift. My heart pounded so loudly I feared it might be audible. I watched through the security feed as she unlocked my front door with keys she should never have possessed and entered my home. She moved efficiently, adjusting throw pillows, opening blinds to showcase the lake view, and placing the welcome basket prominently on the kitchen island. She checked her watch, then made a call. "Hi Barbara, just confirming your arrival time, 3 o'clock, perfect. The house is ready for you. It is absolutely gorgeous today, the lake is like glass." She paused, listening. "Yes, I accept Venmo for the cleaning fee and welcome basket. See you soon." At 2:45 I texted Mason, "She is here. Guests arriving in 15 minutes." His response came immediately, "On my way. Jim and Sarah are ready." I settled into position, legal documents and property deed within reach. Through my partially open office door, I could see Karen making final preparations, lighting a scented candle in the living room and adjusting the temperature on the thermostat. The audacity fueled my resolve. This woman had violated my sanctuary, exploited my property, and abused her position of authority. In less than an hour, her entire fraudulent operation would come crashing down around her. At 3:02 p.m., a silver Mercedes SUV turned into my driveway. The trap was sprung. Karen straightened her blazer and practiced her welcome smile one last time before opening the front door with a flourish. "Barbara, welcome to Blue Water Haven. How was your drive?" Her voice oozed professional warmth. The couple on my doorstep looked exactly like successful vacation rental clients: designer casual clothes, expensive luggage, and the slightly tense expressions of people who had just spent too long navigating holiday traffic. The woman, presumably Barbara, stepped forward first. "It was longer than expected, but worth it from what I can see. This place is gorgeous." She gestured toward the lake view visible through the front windows. "Wait until you see it from the deck," Karen promised. But first, let me show you around inside. I remained perfectly still in my office as Karen led the couple through the entryway. We just renovated the kitchen last fall, she lied smoothly, gesturing to my quartz countertops and stainless appliances. The owner spared no expense on the fixtures. The man nodded appreciatively. The photos online looked great, but this is even better in person. That is why I insist on professional photography for all my properties, Karen said. Now, through here is the main living area with the best views of the lake. They moved into the great room, standing before the wall of windows that showcased Lake Serenity in all its glory. The afternoon sun created diamond patterns on the water's surface. Karen pointed out features with the confidence of someone who truly believed she had the right to be there. The deck access is through these sliding doors, she explained. The gas grill is full and ready for your use. We also provide a starter bundle of firewood for the fire pit down by the water. Barbara smiled at her husband. This will be perfect for our anniversary weekend. Oh, an anniversary, you should have told me, Karen gushed. I could have arranged something special. Perhaps a sunset cruise on the lake. I know the local captain who does private tour. That sounds wonderful, Barbara said. Karen beamed. Consider it done. Now, before we continue the tour, I do need to collect the cleaning fee and welcome basket payment. It was $120 total, correct? Barbara nodded, pulling out her phone. Venmo okay, what is your username? Karen Davis 2022, Karen replied without hesitation. And yes, Venmo is perfect. The phone chimed as the transaction completed. Karen smiled broadly. Excellent. Now let me show you the master suite upstairs. The view from the bedroom is absolutely spectacular. They climbed the stairs, their voices growing distant as they reached the second floor. I slipped out of the office and texted Mason. Payment received. Second floor now, come in. Within minutes, I heard the front door open quietly as Mason, Jim, and Sarah entered with the prearranged signal. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and prepared for the confrontation we had so carefully planned. From upstairs, I could hear Karen's voice growing louder again as the tour group descended. And this second bedroom can be configured either as a queen or two twins, depending on your needs, Karen was saying as they reached the bottom of the stairs. Now, let me show you the laundry room and... Hello, Karen, I said, stepping into the great room. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Karen froze mid-sentence, her mouth still open, color draining from her face. Barbara and her husband looked confused, glancing between Karen and me with growing uncertainty. Alex, Karen said finally, her voice strained. What are you doing here? I did not know you were coming this weekend. Her mind was clearly racing, trying to construct a plausible explanation. I imagine you did not, I replied calmly. Since this is my house and I never authorized you to be here, much less to rent it out to paying guests. Barbara's hand flew to her mouth. What is going on? We rented this property legally through Karen's vacation management company. I am afraid you have been misled, I said, maintaining my composure. I am Alexander Chen, the legal owner of this property. I have never listed this house as a vacation rental, never authorized Karen Davis to manage it, and certainly never given her permission to collect money on my behalf. Karen recovered quickly, her expression shifting to controlled indignation. This is a misunderstanding, she said smoothly. Alex is our property caretaker. He seems confused about the arrangement. Actually, Mason said, stepping forward, I am Mason Williams, Mr. Chen's attorney, and there is no confusion whatsoever. He held up a folder. We have the property deed, tax records, and mortgage documents proving Mr. Chen's ownership. We also have extensive documentation of Ms. Davis' unauthorized entry and fraudulent rental of this property over the past 4 months. Karen's face hardened. This is absurd. As HOA president, I have inspection rights. These people are my personal guests. Paying guests, I corrected, who just sent you $120 via Venmo for cleaning fees and a welcome basket. We have the transaction recorded on video along with your entire tour, during which you claimed multiple times that this was a property you manage. Jim and Sarah stepped forward, adding to Karen's growing horror as she realized she was completely exposed. Would you like to see the vacation rental listings you created using professional photographs of my home? I asked, opening my laptop to display the screenshots. Or perhaps the reviews from previous renters praising host Karen for her hospitality. Or the financial analysis showing you have collected approximately $12,000 by fraudulently renting out my property. Barbara looked stricken. We had no idea. We thought this was legitimate. She turned to her husband. We need to go now. Actually, Mason interjected gently, if you would not mind staying just a few minutes longer, your testimony would be extremely helpful. You are victims in this situation as well. Barbara hesitated, then nodded. Her husband spoke for the first time. We have our rental agreement and payment receipts. Will those help? Immensely, Mason confirmed. Karen's demeanor changed completely. Her professional facade crumbled, replaced by cold fury. You have no idea who you are dealing with, she hissed at me. I run this community. One call from me and your HOA violations will cost you thousands. Your property values will plummet when I rezone the shoreline. I can make your life absolute hell. Are you threatening me, Karen? I asked calmly. Because that would be unfortunate, given that everything you say is being recorded as evidence. She reached for her purse. I am leaving. You will hear from my attorney. Actually, said a new voice from the doorway, I believe these gentlemen would like to speak with you first. 2 police officers stood in the entryway, summoned by Mason's earlier call. Karen froze, her escape route blocked. Officers, Mason said professionally, thank you for coming. We would like to report multiple counts of criminal trespassing, fraud, theft, and possibly identity theft. We have extensive documentation and multiple witnesses present. As the officers entered, Karen's shoulders sagged in defeat. The empire she had built on exploitation and intimidation was collapsing in real time. Barbara and her husband provided their rental agreement to the officers, cementing the evidence against her. Jim and Sarah gave statements about their own experiences with Karen's abuse of power. And I stood in my living room, watching justice unfold in the home that was finally, truly mine again. The Blue Water Cove Community Center had never been so packed. Every chair was filled, with additional residents standing along the walls. The emergency HOA meeting had been called just 3 days after Karen's arrest, and news had spread through the community like wildfire. The energy in the room crackled with a mixture of shock, anger, and from many, relief. Karen's empty chair at the head table spoke volumes. The vice president, a retired accountant named Robert, called the meeting to order with visible nervousness. As you have likely heard, he began, our board president, Karen Davis, has been removed from her position pending criminal investigation. The allegations are serious, including unauthorized entry to private property, fraudulent rental of properties without owner consent, and misappropriation of HOA funds. A murmur ran through the crowd. In the corner, 2 police officers conferred with the county prosecutor who had been assigned to the case. They had come to collect additional statements from community members. Before we proceed with association business, Robert continued, the police have requested time to address the community regarding potential additional victims. The detective stepped forward, a notebook in hand. Good evening. I am Detective Williams. We are investigating multiple counts of fraud, trespassing, and theft related to unauthorized vacation rentals of private properties. If you have noticed unusual activity at your property, unexpected visitors, or missing items, please speak with us after the meeting. What followed was extraordinary. One by one, property owners stood to share their experiences. Tom described finding unfamiliar footprints on his recently cleaned carpet. The Johnsons reported missing towels and unexplained food in their refrigerator. Mrs. Winters recounted how Karen had demanded keys to her house for emergency access and cited an HOA bylaw that did not exist. By the meeting's end, 7 additional homeowners had come forward with suspicions that their properties had been illegally rented. The evidence mounted hourly. Financial records subpoenaed from Karen's accounts revealed she had diverted HOA maintenance funds to create professional rental listings for 5 different properties, including mine. Her personal account showed vacation rental income exceeding $40,000 over the past year. In the days following the meeting, my kitchen table became command central for the neighborhood coalition formed to address the HOA crisis. Jim, an accountant by profession, led the financial audit. Sarah, with her background in community organizing, coordinated the effort to rewrite the HOA bylaws. Tom, a retired judge, provided legal guidance alongside Mason. The district attorney is taking this very seriously, Mason informed us during our third coalition meeting. The case involves multiple victims, systematic fraud, and abuse of position. They are particularly concerned about the misappropriation of HOA funds for her photography and listing expenses. Meanwhile, Karen's hastily hired attorney attempted damage control through increasingly desperate settlement offers. She is willing to resign permanently from the HOA board and return all rental proceeds, the attorney proposed during preliminary discussions. That is merely the starting point, Mason replied firmly. There are criminal charges that cannot be settled privately, property damages to be assessed, and community funds to be restored. The local newspaper ran the story on its front page. HOA president arrested in vacation rental scam. The article detailed Karen's systematic exploitation of her position, the unauthorized key copying, and the elaborate fraud scheme. Other lakeside communities reached out, forming an intercommunity task force to review their own HOA practices and prevent similar abuses. Through it all, I struggled with conflicting emotions. The vindication was satisfying. Seeing Karen face consequences for her actions brought a certain justice. But the violation remained. Strangers had slept in my bed, used my shower, lounged on my furniture. The space that was meant to be my sanctuary had been commodified without my consent. What you are feeling is normal, Sarah assured me during a quiet moment on my deck. As a survivor of home invasion years earlier, she understood the lingering sense of violation. It takes time to reclaim your space. The legal wheels turned slowly but inexorably toward justice. Karen was formally charged with multiple felonies, including residential burglary, identity theft, criminal impersonation, and grand theft. The HOA insurance policy covered some of the financial losses to the community fund, but the damage to community trust was less easily repaired. We need to transform this from individual victimhood into collective action, Tom suggested during a coalition meeting. Use this crisis to build a better, more transparent HOA structure. He was right. The corruption had been exposed, but now came the harder work of rebuilding. As I looked around at my neighbors, people who had been isolated by Karen's divisive leadership, but were now finding common cause, I realized that something powerful was emerging from the wreckage of trust. We were no longer just property owners sharing proximity. We were becoming a true community. The electronic keypad beeped confirmation as I programmed the final security code. The new smart lock system glowed blue, signaling successful installation on all exterior doors. "System armed," the automated voice announced. 6 months after the confrontation with Karen, my lake house was finally, truly secure against unauthorized entry. The legal aftermath had been comprehensive and satisfying. Karen accepted a plea deal rather than face trial, 2 years of probation, significant financial restitution, and 200 hours of community service, to be performed in a county far from Lake Serenity. The civil settlement included full repayment of all rental proceeds, compensation for property use, and additional damages for privacy violation. Most importantly, she was permanently banned from serving on any HOA board or property management position in the state. Our reformed HOA now operated with unprecedented transparency. The new bylaws, crafted with input from every homeowner, established term limits for board positions, required multiple bids for all maintenance contracts, and created an oversight committee with rotating membership. Most critically, we eliminated the emergency access policy entirely. No one but the homeowner would ever hold keys to a property again. The community transformation was perhaps the most remarkable outcome. Where neighbors had once avoided eye contact, fearful of reporting each other for violations, now there were genuine connections. The summer brought community barbecues at the shared lakeside park. Fall saw a cooperative effort to improve the walking trails. Winter meant coordinated holiday decorations that, for the first time, reflected personal expression rather than rigid conformity. But the emotional healing took longer than the practical changes. My therapist called it reconsecration, the process of making violated space sacred again. It began with physical transformation. I said the mattress and bedding that strangers had slept in. I painted walls, rearranged furniture, and installed new artwork that held personal meaning. Each change represented reclaiming ownership of my space. The violation was not just physical but psychological, my therapist explained. You need to reestablish your sense of control and safety in that space. She was right. Each weekend I spent at the lake house brought incremental healing. I developed new rituals, morning meditation on the dock, evening fires by the water's edge, a specific way of opening the house when I arrived that helped me feel secure. Gradually, the property shed the shadow of violation and became mine again.